Hey everybody, it's Al with CAD/CAM Wizard, and today we're going to look at creating some cutting board shapes based on the shape of Idaho. We're going to use a single tool and kind of get right into it. So let's go ahead and just reset this profile, or I'm sorry, this preview, and we can see that we have the two Idaho states nested together. I'm using a 1/4 inch cutter here, but the tool size is really just going to depend what's available by the client. And yeah, this is what we're looking at. We're going to rough our way down. I think what might make sense is having two separate programs, one to rough almost all the way down and one to do a finish pass. Or we could use tabs, but I guess some of that is just depending on your experience. A lot of times the material will kind of hold still if you just do a little onion skin at the end. So let's go ahead and get into it. So let's do a new file here. Alright, so right now this is, I believe the table size, I have it 12 by 24 by 750. Representing the area of the table. We might bring that in a little bit and really have this represent inside of the travel of the machine and for the area of our stock, or slightly greater than the area of the stock that we're working with. So single-sided, we want a job size that is slightly larger, we want a job size as the size of the material that we're going to work with and its thickness. We want a 0 on the top of the surface, and I always recommend top center as a good starting point. I find it's a little bit easier when you're getting started. Now, so we got our job set up. The next thing we want to do is import our geometry. So if you go to cadcamwizard.com, I've gone ahead and traced out all 50 states. You can download these files for free. They don't cost anything, and that's what we're working with here, is one for the state of Idaho. So we're going to import our vector file, and let's see. Okay, here it is here, and we're going to choose open, and we get our this is a DXF file, so we get our DXF file on the screen. Now, I do have an outside profile for it, so we'll left click on that and then choose delete. And now what we want to do is align our geometry within our job size here. So we're going to come over to transform, and we'll window pick all this geometry. And then we can use, if we go over one of these black dots, this will let us rotate. So we can rotate this around until we get it more vertical as such. And that looks good. And then what we're going to do is we're going to place it. So we're going to grab this center position and then just kind of move it down over to here. Okay? Now we'll hit apply and then close. The next thing we want to do is create a copy. Now, I'm not sure where the option is for create a copy. So what I did is just, while this is selected, right? If you click away, it's black, so it's not selected. If we window pick it, we see it goes purple and dashed, letting us know that it's selected. From there, I'm going to do a Control C and then Control V. And that will make a copy of our shape. And then from here, what we want to do is we want to drag it away. Now, I kind of messed up, so let me do it again. I'm going to do a Control Z to undo. Okay. I'm going to window pick this again. I'm going to do a Control C and then Control V. And then I just want to grab this and move it up out of the way. Okay, I can grab that little center point there. Then I want to repeat the same thing. I just want to rotate it around by picking that black dot in the corner. Okay, we'll get it until it's level like this, and then we'll use this center position in order to move this over. And essentially what we're doing is nesting these two shapes together. Now that we have those two shapes, we can window pick them and do a transform. And we're going to just move this over to the center here. Okay, so that's the steps to bring in the file and then align it, or what I'm saying is nesting, which is just making more than one copy and keeping it within our shape. Now, the next thing I want to do here is if I left click on this, you can see it doesn't go all the way around. Only a section of it goes around. If I left click on this one again, only a section of it goes around. And what we have here is when I drew the file, I drew it with lines and splines, and when we import it into Vectric, it doesn't consider it closed shapes. So there's an option over here called Join Open Vectors. So we're going to go ahead and select that. We'll window pick our geometry and then choose Join and then Close. So when we do this, now when we left click on it, you'll see the whole thing highlights. So that way we know it's a closed shape. So those are the steps for our CAD work. Now, if we do want to make it bigger or smaller, let's say we want to scale it up to utilize more of the material, we can window pick all of this and we can use this set selected object size. This is just going to let us scale it. We should be able to grab one of these corners here and be able to pull it up, make it bigger or smaller. So maybe we'll just make it a little bit bigger. Okay, and then we can use this center point here. We can click on that and then drag it to locate it within the center of our job here. We'll hit apply and then close. Okay, so that's just a little bit of resizing there. So now that we have the geometry set up, the crosshairs on the screen, these are indicating the 0 position, or the center, I believe. Okay, so we know we're zeroing on center, and we would do the same thing with our stock on the machine. We would just draw a line at the middle on either side, and where it intersects, that's where we want our 0 to be. When we set the job up to run it on the router, we're going to jog our machine until the tool's over this center position that we marked on our stock, and we'll touch off and set 0 there and then jog the tool up and away. So from here we want to get over into the cam side. This is where we're generating our tool path, saying what size tool we're going to use and how aggressive we're going to cut and what we're going to do. So in our example, we just need to profile around these shapes. So we'll come over here. There's a bunch of different tool path options in here. The one that we want to use is called Profile, so we'll select that. This says where we're going to start cutting, so we're starting at 0, and we want to cut all the way through. Now, like I talked about at the beginning of the video, I may want to run a finish pass separately, so we may make this a little bit more shallow, so we might make it just 70 like this. Our tool, we're going to use a 1/4 inch end mill. You can come in and choose select, and they have a number of different tool sizes in here. This is the tool that we're using. Over here, this is the depth per pass, so we might want to lighten that up a little bit, maybe make it less than the tool diameter. This is our step over if we were cutting a pocket. This is the spindle speed, so if you have a VFD, and the machine reads the spindle speed based off your G code, you would enter that number here. And then this is how fast it's cutting along, and this is how fast when it enters the material. So for us, we're going to just slow it down and make this 20 and 10. We'll hit apply. We're going to go ahead and select this tool, and now we've not only defined our tool size, but we defined how aggressive it cuts, and we've defined how fast it will be moving. Now let me move this out of the way. Okay, so in here we want to select our shapes. So if we click this one time and then we click this one, you can see how they're one selected and then the other one selected. So in order to select two of them, we want to hold down Shift and then click the second object, and that will allow us to select both of these shapes. Now from here we want to look at what side we're cutting on. Are we cutting on the inside, or are we cutting on the outside? So for us, we want to cut on the outside of the part. Okay, now we have the direction we're going to cut. Are we going to cut climb, which would be clockwise, or are we going to cut conventional, which would be counterclockwise? So a lot of times with woodworking, conventional is less aggressive. If you have a more rigid machine, you might climb, but I think in general, conventional cutting is probably the better way to go, so we're going to start with that. Now this value down here, this is an offset amount if we wanted to leave a certain amount of stock on the wall for finishing, but we're going to go ahead and just cut right to size. From here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to just skip all these options here. This is, you know, for a sprint or onion skin, if you do a separate finish pass. I'm just taking a little different strategy versus doing it here. I want to be able to stop the machine and be able to run a finish cycle separately, where if I turn this option on, I could tell it how much I want to do on that onion skin, that last pass, but then it's going to run all at one time. Okay, so I'm going to turn that one off. This one here has to do with tabs. Tabs a way to keep the stock connected, or the part connected to the stock, but I'm going to skip that option as well. There's some other options for the leads, where it starts, things like that. We're going to just leave the default and just come over here and calculate. Okay, so it's calculated the tool path. That's the blue that we see on the screen, and kind of rotate it a little bit by holding our left mouse button and moving on the screen. We can use our mouse wheel to zoom in and out, and you can see we're getting multiple passes to come around and to cut the part. So we have simulation here, so we can kind of speed it up or slow it down. I just want to slow it down a little bit and then press play, and then we can see where the tool is going to start cutting. We can see what direction it's going to cut in. I highly recommend you run simulations. It's just a good idea to see exactly what's going to happen before you get out to the machine. And for the most part, what you see happening here is what's going to happen out at the machine. So you see how it's going to run around this shape. It will go all the way down just below the bottom of the part, and then it will move to the next shape. Alright, now it's going to be running slow, like we have it set at 20 inches a minute, you know, so that is pretty slow, but we want to get used to and comfortable to the machine and how it's operating, and a lot of times starting slower is just a good way to go. Alright, so now we see that we have our two roughing passes going just before the bottom of our cut, following our two shapes. Okay? Alright, now what we want to do is come back and finish cut again, but this time we want to cut all the way through the material. Okay, so let's go ahead and close our simulation. Let's go back over here. Right now we're in a 3D view, so we want to go to the 2D view, and we're back over here. Now we're going to run another profile. Our geometry is still selected, so we can go to Profile. Okay, this time we're going to go to 755. Normally you want a little bit to punch through to get to the spoil board. If you do that, it's probably going to yell at you a little bit and tell you that it's going too deep, but we're doing this on purpose, right? Below our stock is a spoil board, so it's okay if we cut into it. There's some people who don't want to cut into the spoil board. I ask them, why is it called a spoil board then, or a waste board? It's intended to be cut into, and cutting a little bit deeper and into the material, through the material into the spoil board ensures you get a nice clean cut. Alright, so we got our tool setting here. This is going to be on the outside. All of our settings should be the same. The only thing that we want to do differently is we want to edit our passes. So we could do that by a start depth, but I think the easiest thing to do is just edit our passes, and we're going to reduce this just to a single pass and then choose OK. Alright, let me go back to that. You can see it's got the tool and it says passes 1. Before it had multiple passes because that was based on the tool setting. You can use this number of passes right here to add additional passes or remove them, and again we just want to do this in a single pass. Okay, so we're going to choose OK, And then the last thing we want to do is just to calculate that toolpath. Again, it's going to warn us, the material thickness is a certain amount and we're going greater than that amount. It's okay, it's just letting us know that we're cutting into the spoil board. All right, we're going to go ahead and choose OK. And from here, we can slow our simulation down. Now it is nice, it picks up where we left off, so we don't have to run the rough pass again. And what we can do is just watch the finished pass. So you'll see how this one's just going to work its way around, removing that material. And then now it's cut free, then it moves to the next part, works its way around, and then cuts the material free. All right, there you go. We get our two shapes cut out. Now the last thing we would do here is to post our program, or as they call it, save your toolpath. So we would choose save here, and then we're going to make sure we pick the machine that we're using and the post processor, so that it's formatted properly for our equipment. Now if you have any questions, comments, or feedback, just reply back to wherever this video may be posted in. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thank you.